You said something, Ghana was there.
Yes.
See, today, if I went to sit at a bar or I went to a party or a social gathering with my friends, the general conversation is that, oh, as for Ghana, there's no hope. We're finished. We just have to just hang in there. We die and go and hope to see what will happen. You know, anytime you speak, predominantly, we say there's no hope. At that time, you know, your 20s and 30s, if you met at a bar with your friends, did you also say, oh, there's no hope, or did you see hope? I mean, what was the line of conversation there?
There was so much hope. You know, you remember the Akusumo was being built, and then many factories were simultaneously being built. From 63, hundreds of factories were being built. And there were songs around Tema Ejumabo. I mean, so there was a lot of hope for the Ghanaian. And because of the reliance on science and technology that Nkrumah actually imbued in us, nobody could imagine that in 2013 we would be in this situation. It was not possible to imagine that. We knew that would have been very, very far ahead. There was no doubt about that. Totally no doubt. We had built the UST. You know, there were a lot of technical schools. I mean, things were happening. You could feel it when you are in. You could just feel the atmosphere. It was very challenging, and you wanted to be part of it.
The other thing is, yes, you see, with all the hope that was in your era and all the hopelessness in our era, I want to find out how much percentage of this hopelessness is from your era, because most of the people governing today were educated by Nkrumah. They went through that era, and now they've handed the reins of power to them, and clearly they are not doing a very good job of it. So, I mean, did you contribute to this hopelessness?
Well, we didn't contribute. But don't forget that it was our generation that created the wealth in this country. Our generation created it. All those factories that we talked about and so on were created by our generation. The problem came when the process was truncated at the 1966 coup. It was obvious. I mean, literature shows us that the whites, the Europeans, the Americans were not happy at the pace at which Ghana was developing. So everything was done to truncate the process. For instance, you know that the Akosombo hydropower was commissioned 1966, January 22nd. And 1 month after that, the coup took place because they knew that with cheap power, those factories were going to be sustainable, because before then, all the factories were running on diesel engines. You know, so it's a deliberate truncation of the process that has brought us to this process. And don't forget that most of the things that were good, when the coup came, they managed to more or less take it over. For instance, the 22,000-acre rubber, or the rubber factory and the tire factory was sold to the Firestone. Firestone actually came for it. And they wanted to sell the sugar factories, and almost every factory that was viable, they created the impression that virtually the Ghanaian could not make it, so they should dispose of it. And unfortunately, our people went in for the bait, and we lost everything. And we lost even our self-confidence, because those days we had a lot of self-confidence.
See, everything that you explain is so blatant and is so clear. How come we never caught on? How come we just said, no, these guys are taking us for a ride? And even till today, we still haven't caught on.
Yeah, the mindset of our people, you know, those days, Nkrumah believed the Ghanaian could do it. You know the history of how the medical school was set up and how so many other things. Don't forget that we even had female pilots. That was in the 60s. But right now, last week or so, I was reading about, I think, one of these East African countries, you know, jubilating the fact that they have produced a female pilot. When the female pilot was produced over nearly 50 years ago by Ghana. And the whole Ghana Airways staff, everybody at the airport was manned purely by Ghanaians. And they take the Akosombo power plant. It been manned totally by Ghanaians right from the word go. It didn't happen anywhere. No, so it is the leadership that should really revive this hope in our people, that we can. Because if we cannot, why is it that when our people go elsewhere, they do great things, but when they come here, they are not able to do it? It's just because the type of leadership really kills their spirit.
The other thing that I want to touch on is, should we have waited a bit longer to get independence, or did we get it at the right time?
Okay.
And then also, this desperate measure that Nkrumah took to say that I need to get the whole Africa on board, could we have been a bit selfish, a bit longer before start to worry about the rest of the African continent?
No. First of all, I need to explain that at the time that you fought for independence, that's in the 40s, the Second World War had just ended. Mm-hmm. The British and the Europeans were not interested in war anymore, because the Africans who fought in the Second World War had seen the myth of the superiority of the white man had been broken as a result of their interactions. I remember my own father telling me that in Burma, the Ghanaian contingent was in Burma fighting the Japanese, and they virtually routed them. The Japanese were shouting, "Oh, Africa, oh, Africa." They were virtually routed. So it gave our people a lot of confidence, and that the myth that the white man was superior totally disappeared. So India too had got independence in 1948, and if Nkrumah had waited, maybe the Europeans would have recovered, the economic power, and it have been they wouldn't have agreed to give independence at that time. So he timed it very well.
My other one was, we hear that he gave, Mali 10 million, he gave Guinea 10 million, and gave, build all these things in Africa to try and get them on board. Yeah. Some African students came to school in Ghana, indeed, to come and better themselves. Did we reap any results?
Yes, we did. You see, Guinea, for instance, the French wanted to keep their territories as part of France. And Guinea was the only country that decided to opt out. And when it opted out, the French cut off all aid to Guinea. So that if Nkrumah had not gone to aid Guinea, Guinea would have fallen back into colonialism. Now, I also knew that because of the resources of Africa, if the African resources were all put together, then definitely we could stand the world, because the Congo alone, the electric power from Congo was enough virtually for the whole Western world. And if we should have such access, then definitely we have to create conditions for our people to link up with us. So some of them came for education here, and we set up the Ideological Institute to conscientize them. Mm-hmm. Everything was done to bring them together. But don't forget that at that time, the Americans and Europeans were aware of this, and they wanted to keep these countries under them. So they did everything possible to try to derail the whole process. And unfortunately, our people could not see through this.
The other thing which I won't necessarily say anti-Nkrumah, but they say that he was too intolerant and not democratic and impatient. And, they cite example that, Mandela had the same fate. He went in for 27 years, came back and was hailed, but there was no way Nkrumah was going to, take it lying down, and that made him too oppressive.
I totally disagree, because, you see, from the 60s, in fact, as early as 1963, he started this industrialization program. And don't forget that every project that Nkrumah tackled was resisted. The motorway was resisted, and people jubilated because the motorway was truncated, because they get the false alarm. The hydroelectric dam itself was opposed in Parliament. I remember I've forgotten the name of the person who was leading it. Every Tema Harbor, all the projects were opposed. But because of his own exposure in the United States, he knew the benefits of these projects, so that he persisted to make sure that the projects were implemented. And definitely he did cultivate some misunderstanding enemy, those people who were hoping that these programs virtually did not survive.
Could he have done more in terms of, I don't know if educating or sensitizing or letting the people know that they needed it, rather than, you know what, you don't know you need it, so just come along with me. Because it feels that the reason why everybody will oppose is that, you know, I come in here and say, there, that's a pint of blood, you need it, you know, without me telling you that you are anemic.
You see, that's what I'm saying, that it was a truncation. Don't forget that he sent virtually hundreds of people to universities outside in those days. The program had actually started in 1960, but 61, the first batch, for instance, we went for about 80 something. And these people who had been conscious and who really understood the programs, could not come back before the coup took place. And those forces against were aware that if these people came back with the right knowledge, with the explanation, etc., they would not succeed in their attempt to overthrow him. So they just made sure that the people with the right knowledge and understanding could not take power before he was overthrown.
What would you say about Achampon's rule?
I don't know what people will say, but I think if I take Nkrumah off, Achampon is my next hero. He was very genuine, and he wanted to restore the Ghanaian dignity, you know. And he had the misfortune of the Arab-Israeli war, that when the price of fuel between $3 and $4 a barrel went up to over 30, you know, 30 to nearly $40 per barrel. That really derailed the Champions program. But the Champions time, the economy actually recovered. And had it not been this war that virtually made it impossible for him to run because of the high energy cost, I think this country would have been better off.
Just before I take a break, why do you think history has dealt him such a hard blow? Because you rarely hear of him.
The history has also done Nkrumah a hard blow, because when people really go in to find out exactly what he did, then those people who had overthrown him might not find the justification. I believe that you have read this book. I've seen people who had opposed Nkrumah very strongly, and who, when after they have read the book, they have changed their mind, because people were not aware what was happening. We had accompanied some soldiers who were taught some of these factories, you know, the sugar factories, and they were crying that they didn't know that's what was happening. Things were taking place in this country.
How did you go into engineering? How did you pursue your career towards engineering?
Yeah, through excursions. I think when I was in about class 3, we were sent to the railways, you know, and then we climbed into a locomotive. They were trying to explain how the locomotive works, and I was very excited, you know, by the locomotive. So I decided that, no, this is something that I should also try and follow. That's why I became committed, even from those days in class 3, class 4, to go into engineering.
Was there support then that, look, this is my field, so I want to do technical stuff? Was there the support there?
There was great support. You know, I finished sixth form, and I did physics, chemistry, mathematics, etc. And so those days scholarships were very easy. I mean, the Eastern countries had given Ghana 3,000 scholarships. So I happened to be within the group and went to USSR. We were supposed to go in 1960 ending, but we ended going there exactly 24th February 1961. And when I went there, of course, with high school set, that was very high standing. So, you know, you could virtually bully your mates. And that was the time of the space race. And we were very excited. In fact, even when I was in Form 5 in the 50s, I knew the takeoff speed of the rockets at that time, being the 18,000 miles an hour, and the operating speeds being over 21,000 miles an hour. That's something I knew as when I was in Form 5, you know, because we were excited by this space race, and Ghana was really was there. We went to sixth form debates, etc. You know, we were discussing all these things, but unfortunately, things have changed right now.
Welcome back to PM Express Personality Profile, and the personality I'm speaking with today is the crusading engineer Robert Wood. Now, he's written a book, Economic Repercussions of the Overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Very, very revealing. Now, there's a chapter in the book that talks about the almond as a wealth creator, third wealth to first by one touch. Now, it talks about, I'll just give you a brief rundown. It talks about how we should focus on almond, extract the oil rather than thinking about crude oil or palm oil. It's an area which the crusading engineer thinks we might be missing the boats. Goes further to say that we can do 7 million hectares with 2 million bodies. I mean, there's enough youth around today doing nothing. And from that, per capita income would go to somewhere about $10,000 per capita income. So you ask yourself, is it possible? Why are we not doing it? Engineer, I read this chapter and I was like taken aback, blown up, because have you simplified it too much, or this is what it is, that we should mainly plant almond? They don't require that much water, they don't require that much process, and the tonnage and everything seems to add up.
Okay. There is a man called Nana Abra. He is in the Coup area. He's been in this almond thing for about 8 years now. We had his plantation in the eastern region, etc. And so we gathered this information practically from the data that he saw.
Okay.
So the figures are right. The almond is a very fast-growing tree. They call it Abrafonkatia.
Yeah.
2.5 years it grows, and it's a prolific cedar, giving a lot of fruits. And the almond oil is one of the most expensive oils in the world. If anybody can go to the net right now, it's about $12 to $15 per kilo or per liter. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money. That means that it's about if it's multiplied 1,000, it's about $140,000. Is it $14,000 per ton. I mean, palm oil, the highest price was somewhere, I think, $1,500. I mean, it used to be between $200 to $300 and so on. $14,000 is a lot of money. So that, and it grows, with marginal rainfall between some around 25 inches, about 36 inches, which is the normal rainfall all over the country. And because of that, it has also important uses, medicinal uses, and some other qualities that I don't want to mention because people don't go and attack the tree immediately. So we looked at it and said, now this is something that we can use mass mobilization of the population to go in and then make money, because plantations are always sustainable. I mean, the backbone of the Malaysian economy is from plantations. You have large numbers of people can be employed. You have huge value addition chain, and this one you have carbon credit because it has a lot of leaves, so it absorbs a lot of carbon. I mean, under normal circumstances, you have a pristine forest, the carbon absorption is about 200 tons per hectare. The almond is able to give you about 100 tons per hectare of carbon absorption.
7 million hectares.
Okay.
Would it not affect vegetation? Because it's not the natural vegetation, like the grass and the little insects. Wouldn't they be affected at 7 million hectares?
Though the fact is that we have so much unlimited, unutilized land here. The Ghana is so much. If you are driving anywhere towards the Volta region, the Afram Plains, the land is there. The land is there for us to use. And we must use the land. Go to the northern part. The land is there. Nobody's using the land. And this will, apart from that, affect the rainfall part. Mm-hmm. So we need to look at the almond. It's so easy to cultivate.
How about the extraction of the oil? I mean,
the extraction of the oil, there's only bottleneck is how to extract the kernel from the very hard seed. Mm-hmm. Now, with the help of this young man, Almond, we have managed to devise a machine that is able to crack it. In fact, what it does is that it eats up the flesh, the cover, mm-hmm. gradually until the kernel is reached, mm-hmm. and then it drops out. We have some working models and so on. That is the only serious bottleneck. But the almond oil, if you have nothing to do, it can be used for power production. It can be used for all sorts of things. The cake itself, 42% protein, is a good material for human consumption and for animals. Like the poultry. The poultry industry is collapsing because of the high cost of feed. The almond will give you an alternative high-quality protein to replace soya bean or other fish meal, etc., which you can use to reactivate your poultry industry. So we are asking that Ghana government should look at that plant very, very seriously. In fact, about 3 years ago, the ILO was highly fascinated, and we prepared some special report for the ILO. And I think the ILO even proposed to the government to look at this crop, but somehow nothing happened. And the crop is totally underutilized. It has very, very high potential.
As a layman, if we dam the lake or the river again, aren't we going to flood, furthermore of our lands and displace more people? I'm just asking. But as soon as you dam, you seem to flood an area.
You have to look at the benefits. Those areas are sparsely populated areas. They are very sparsely populated areas. But it depends on what you do with your lake. You have about 400 miles of inland lake, and you are importing fish. What is the sense in it? That kind of water spilling into the sea, when we did calculations using the world population as 6.7 million, we could get 9,125 grams of grain using that water spilling into the sea for irrigation, for production of grain. This poverty we are in is a self-imposed poverty because we have refused to plan ourselves out of the difficulty. We want to see any plan that will take out of this difficulty. Last week when we met, I was telling you that 2014 we imported 42 million Ghana cedis of rubber ties and inner tubes. We have a rubber plantation. We have a rubber factory. 2012, we imported 280 million. It's still going up. And we are exporting our latex, and nobody is talking about reactivating the rubber factory. For how long can we continue running this country that way?
What keeps you going? Because as a nation, as a people, we've become very selfish, very intolerant. If you're not MPP, NDC, you're not part of the game. And here you are with your research and your book, stay up nights and do all your research, knowing very well that, as it says, what keeps you going?
The Bible says, knock and thou shalt be opened. Yeah. So you have to keep knocking and knocking and knocking. We've been knocking, I don't know for how long, but here you are coming in right now to also carry on the message and even agreeing to become an apostle of the crusade, crusade that we have to create our own capacity to build our own machines, because in 57 years you can't build a bicycle, you can't build anything. You have higher education institutions like KNU, USA, etc. And this is why we are crusading. We are crusading and we are showing, hoping that one day people will hear. See, what surprised me, what makes me sad is that we went to school with the Cubans. In fact, the Cubans came and met us in the US with the Russians, and we're beating the Russians in their own classroom. I see my mates building the helicopter gunships, they are building spacecrafts, and these are people that we beat them in our classrooms in the 60s. The Koreans, the Chinese especially, were studying in the USSR with us, the Iraqis, and we're beating them. Then I see where the Iraqis are, where the Iranians are, where the Chinese are. I ask myself, these the people we're beating, why is it that we are at this point? So we will keep shouting. That one I'm not going to stop. I'm 76, I know 90 I'll reach. But I'm going to break your ears, Ghanaians. We're going to make so much noise that you have to listen, that it is possible to reach wherever any nation has reached, because we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, lips, hands, like all of them. So we'll not give up. It is possible for Ghana to reach wherever any nation has reached. And we have immense opportunities because we are in a tropical country. You have a lot of rainfall, you have a lot of solar, you have a lot of people who have no work to do, we have land. And all the things that we need to do has been done by other people.
Engineer,
so how can you make a mistake?
There's a Dr. Matthew Tete that you speak about in your book.
Yes.
who found out why the ant hill
Yes.
doesn't get damaged in the rain.
Yes.
And but our mud houses were. So
Yes.
this technology, tell me about this.
Yes. He investigated and actually managed to synthesize the material that the ant uses to build the ant hill, so that when it rains, the ant hill does not wash off. And actually built some houses in Ghana. He built some houses at Dansuman Junction there, and Dansuman, and those houses are there, right? The matter is in court. So we have people who have knowledge. Now, Dansuman was called Akoko Photo because that was the biggest poultry in Africa. We had the biggest dry dock in Africa, in Tema, it's 100,000 tons. What do you do with it? We had the refinery also 50 years ago. What do you do with it? We had boat yards. What do you do with it? And then we go to FPSO to buy the FPSO. When they didn't have those three major facilities that should allow us to build an FPSO, that's a FASO, that is drilling production unit in the Western region. And even at this time, we are not taking any steps even to replicate it. So it means that in the next 50 years, we will still go and buy it. So what kind of people are we?
Replication. It's amazing that, because I've heard you mention it. What will ginger us? Because most countries buy a product, dismantle it, see how it was done, and you do it. And I'm going to link it to, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. They seem to come there and repair everything that we import, transformers, big machines. But why don't we have the culture of just replicating, even not inventing, but just replicating?
Okay, that must be a state policy. In fact, the Koreans, as I said, we built our K University 15 years before the Koreans did it. But what they did was that they go to school half day, and then other half day, they go in for practicals. So the Korean scientist or engineer comes out from school, he has that knowledge to build the machine equipment directly, but it was supported by a state institution with advanced machine tools that you could assess. And this is what we've been advocating. And then United Nations actually helped us to put in feasibility studies that will allow us to put up an advanced machine tool center that will give us the capacity to replicate all the machines. This document has been with the ministry since 2005, and nobody is talking about it. We only require $20 million to give us that capacity. You bring a recruiter, you weld the place, you dismantle, you replicate it. So you move on. For how long are you going to be relying on the white man's goods when the price of cocoa has virtually not changed for 70 years? But look at the price of VW and other cars 70 years ago. VW was £500 in the early 50s and 60s. Right now, it's more than $30,000. Your cocoa price has not changed dramatically for 70 years. So how long are you going to be in this situation?
Do you think multi-party system has played a role in our downfall or our stagnation?
We need that kind of leader with that spirit, can do spirit, that I am going to do it. But I don't think that those South Koreans are less stupid than we are, or the Malaysians. I don't think that. But and we have the people. There are people around us. But unfortunately, because of politics, some of these people are scared to go to politics because of mudslinging. So that we also need to take steps to sanitize our political system. How they brand people, knowledgeable people, they will destroy you. And I know a professor at Legon who's so good, he wants to go to politics. The wife tells him that if you go to politics, I'll leave you, because he doesn't want the husband to be smeared. So when we create this kind of politics in such a way that people with knowledge will shy away, then where can we leave this country?
The good people are always sitting by.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you're going, keep going. The other thing, which probably this professor's wife is right in saying, is that the very people that you stand up to speak for are the ones that go against you.
Yeah, people must be educated. Most of the people, they do these things because they are not educated. And I'm really appealing to you, and especially the people of the media. Please build yourself sufficient knowledge so that you do the right things for our people to follow. Because don't forget, we have over 50%, 60% of our people are stark illiterates. They don't have access. They don't know what is happening outside. Things that are happening outside is awesome. Awesome. There are now systems that you can print a bicycle in your room, print it and ride on it. These are latest technology called three-dimensional printing. Things that are happening outside are so awesome. And that is my fear, that if we do not quickly come on board, the whole thing will scare us, because the gap between the advanced technologies and us will be so big that it will scare us that, oh, we can't, and we give ourselves up. So this is time to go in for the technologies. We need to go in for the nanotechnologies. We need to go in for all the things that the white man is doing now.
Are we not there yet, engineer? Has the gap not been so big that we are scared to catch up?
I don't think you are scared, but I'm not scared. I'm not scared because we can make it. And we have a major advantage because their endpoint is our starting point. The Chinese, they bought the Airbus recently. They have replicated the Airbus. I knew in the 70s, they bought locomotives from Germany. They created some problem. They had some problem with the Germans. They went away. 6 months, they started building those locomotives. And the Chinese are building the fastest locomotives in the world because the starting point was the end point of the Germans and the other countries. So this is exactly what we need to do. But we have to have that strong leader that we can. And I don't want people to explain problems, but they must solve the problems. We must not say we are going to increase the fuel price. What do we do to replace the fuel? We can go in for biodiesel. We can go in for other things, ethanol. You know, not say, oh, let us increase. But meanwhile, other countries like Brazil and so on, they go in for alternative fuel. But we say, no, we don't have it, we increase it. That is very negative.
My name is Nana Ansakwa, and you've been watching Personality Profile.